Hi everyone, this is Nadia Jake, this is Buddy Boy, and this is Sedona Girl, and today we're back with another show, and this time we're reviewing Slow Horses, which is a British drama. It's almost like James Bond-ish.
It's a spy show.
Yeah, we actually finished it about a week ago and really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, season 2 just wrapped about a week ago. We watched season 1 and season 2 shortly after each other, and it's on Apple Plus, so not everyone has Apple Plus, but we happen to get like a 3 months free or whatever. Apple, they turn out to have some pretty good shows on there, huh? Above everything else, though, is Severance was the best one for sure. The morning show was fun trash, and
I really like season 1 and morning show.
Yeah. We have Slow Horses here, which was fantastic. We don't usually watch kind of like spy thriller stuff, except maybe Chuck. Which is a comedy.
Oh, we love Chuck.
But this just had such a wonderful premise and really hooked us in from the start. First off, the main like star that's like appearing in the show that really like grounds the show is Gary Oldman. So the show starts off with like your typical spy situation of this guy who's trying to chase down who is supposed to be a terrorist.
River, right?
His name is River, yeah. And so it's kind of this like intense thing where we think it's a real situation. Turns out it's a training mission. He fails, so he's kind of sent to this area of MI5 where they put all of the bad spies. Can't really fire them, but they want them to like make them quit. It's such a shitty area to work in. They're working for this guy Lamb, who is like a famous spy who is like very curmudgeonly, played by Gary Oldman. It's basically a story about this group. It's called Slough House. Now, this show is based on a series of novels. Now that we've watched the seasons, I really want to read them. I guess each season is based on like one of the books. So it has a really tight structure and everything kind of ties together. And I think that's what makes the show work, especially is that they have these great novels to work off of.
I like how they name it because it's like the place where they work, because it's very like similar to like slaughterhouse, like we're gonna slaughter these spies. We'll get into it in the spoiler section, but it's interesting how a lot of them got there. Thought overall, without spoiling anything, like Jake said, the action is really spot on. It has a good balance of something more sentimental, character development at the same time. It does.
Interesting. I thought what I liked about it is that it kind of strayed away from like sentiment and was very...
No, there's some sentiment, especially like season 1.
But it's there is some, but it's mostly about like, what's so great about Gary Oldman's character is that he is just an asshole. And like, even in the moments where it's like, the one redeeming thing about him, like he's nasty, he's gross, he's mean, to everyone. But the one redeeming thing about him is that he cares very much about his team. He cares very much about Slough House, there's people, even though he treats them like shit.
Yeah, but you don't really see that in the beginning.
No.
That's what I mean with character development. You see that within as it unfolds.
Yeah.
As with any show that is very action oriented, when you look at movies, Mission Impossible, anything like that, it's obviously more about the action than it is about the character. But I think a lot of times with shows that I've seen, the characters really tend to get lost and you realize you don't really connect with the character. Mm-hmm. You don't end up really rooting for them as much as previously, and you get bored and you stop watching it. And in this one, I think there's some really strong genesis of characters at the very least.
Yeah.
That keeps you invested and makes you want to keep watching the show in general, and you really want to root for these people. One of the things that I really loved about it is like just the work frustration a lot of times is very relatable, even without like it being not obviously most of us aren't spies. Cubicle type of work kind of
feels very realistic.
Feels very realistic and feels like, oh, this would be like how a real spy that I imagine could probably be in like a real world, because it's not always about like jumping out of a plane. It's not always about this.
It's the boring shit.
Yeah, it's a lot of boring stuff, but it's also about like coworkers talking to each other.
The show isn't boring itself, but I mean
No. They don't make it boring, but I mean like you really are realistically intrigued and feel like you relate to the characters. And I also love the writing. I will say I had to like look up a few words since their British slang that I'm
We
not
had the
used
subtitles
to.
on.
We had the subtitles. Well, I was fine. I don't know why you wanted a subtitle, but like
I needed that. I was like, I like the accent, like I could kind of understand it, but they're doing a lot of like jargon spy shit, you know. So I'm like, I just need subtitles. It'll
I
help a
just
little
needed
bit.
like to know like the slangs a little bit because some of the context I was like, oh, okay, I could figure it out within the context of the sentence, but I also wanted to be sure, so I was like looking up what some certain words mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's a serious show. Like in the stories that it's deal with, like the overarching season stories, they're very like intense and there's a good drama there. But what carries it, and I haven't seen this in a lot of like spy, you know, thriller shows, is that it's so funny. Like there's so much humor because we kind of like see the realism of like in these agencies, there's a lot of fuck ups. There's a lot of mistakes. Like people are just can be idiots. Like, and a lot of the times you see how bumbling these agencies work. There's so much humor there. The characters themselves, they're likable, but they're also hugely flawed. So you really root for them. I mean, Lamb at the beginning of the show, you're like, oh, he's horrible and disgusting, and who'd want to work for that guy? By the end of like season 2, I'm going like, oh, he's the best character ever, you know? I could just watch these characters hanging out, you know, like during a boring office day.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think the characters really balance each other out, and also it balances the show out because, like you stated, there's like someone whom you're like an asshole character, then there's the serious, and then there's the funny like one, and there's just like a couple people who are just kind of lost and more you feel sorry for them, and then there's some devastation there as well. I think in season 1 especially, I didn't feel like there was much devastation in season 2, although very good show, very well plotted in my opinion. And
season 1 was better,
but season 1, I don't know if that's true.
There's some great moments in season 2, but I think season 1 was more.
I really
thrilling.
like Lamb's development in season 2. I really like they really explore his history. You know, as with any cliffhanger, you want to see like, okay, in season 2, this better be explored, and it really does. And I think it's very satisfying explanation. And you kind of see like, honestly, it's a little unpredictable because season 1 makes you believe that he is someone he's not. And season 2, it gives you more clarity of why his actions were the way that it was, I guess I'll say.
Yeah. Another thing great about the show is that they're not afraid to kill big characters.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's kind of up to be like, if you make mistakes and you can get killed, you know, and even characters you really like and kind of want to see more of.
What am I talking about? Season 2 has a lot of devastation.
It does. But
season 2, okay. Season 2, I think the reason why I say that is because season 2, in the beginning, me and you predicted that a certain person was going to die.
Yeah.
And we were correct. So I think like we just kind of expected that. Whereas season 1, we were surprised. Yeah. Should we rate it and get into the spoiler section?
Yeah. I mean, I'd give this like an 8 or a 9.
I'd give this a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we definitely highly recommend it. So we're going to move on to the spoiler section now. That being said, in the first season was Sid's death.
Yes.
Because she was like the it person. And I honestly thought that her and River were going to have a romantic connection because only looked up to Sid. And Sid was like the competent one who stood out. But of course, we find out later, like, oh, she wasn't punished to be in that house. She was actually like implanted there. Diana, I believe, the head of the whole spy. She's
second in command on MI5.
She's the second on the command. Yeah, but
played by Kristen Scott Thomas.
But she acts as if she is in main command because we never really see the other people as much.
And she has a beef with Lamb. So.
Yeah, and she's a beef with Lamb, but also she is like a little bit of a strange relationship where they're kind of like relying on each other and they like respect each other, but they also like want to take down each other, like a subtext context. But like anyway, with Sid, she was implanted there because River accidentally took a photo of her, Diana, when she was
meeting with one of the guys who was a plant in the terrorist scheme.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was done very innocently because River was supposed to like really train on his spy skill and
well, and that's what I love about the first season is that like The whole main plot of the show is because MI5 is they're fucking idiots, you know, and they made this scheme to try to like get a political outcome, you know, and it felt very real to life, you know.
Well, yeah, it shows like the realistic aspect of like, okay, people are like, the thing that I love about this show is that it's not afraid to state its stance. Oh, okay, there's racism there. There's like really politically far.
You have a lot of far right stuff.
Far right where you're
terrorism.
And also it explored like identity.
Yeah.
And the fluidity of the identity and kind of like saying, what does it mean to be British? I love this scene in the end of season 1 where the person who was being kidnapped and they were going to chop off his head because he was Muslim.
It's like an old castle. It looks medieval. But
it looks medieval. Yeah. It looks, I think it's like a couple hundred years old. But then he was the one who was actually educated and was like, no, this is a redo. They rebuilt this because of this and this. He knew more about like the British history and felt
than the
like,
actual, you know, white nationalists.
Yeah, who was like, oh no, like, and who was very anti-xenophobe and anti-immigrant and everything in there. So
that was so, I mean, watching that whole, like once we got to see like the other side, like see the kidnappers and see their scheme and how it was falling apart and how they were turning on each other. And you had the guys who weren't as extreme and the one who was super extreme. It was just such an interesting thing. It felt almost very Elmore Leonard, where you always get to see the bad guys and how stupid they are, you know, and how they're crumbling. So that was fantastic. Overall, like the show, what I really get from the show, and like you see like how people die just out of nowhere. Like you realize like watching it, there's nothing glamorous about like the spy business. They're basically like criminals on the payroll and they can be thrown under the bus at any point by the government because they're expendable. And it just feels very much like, oh yeah, they're professional criminals. By the end, you really see why Lamb is the way he is, because you realize like, oh, he's just seen so many people die. And he realizes like there's no way to just like deal with it. You just.
Well, he also understands the fluidity within the business itself, and that he, like, to your point, he states that the rules don't apply the same way, like the legal rules, you know, in there, and which makes sense in somewhat. But then you also see corruption behind it as well. But then you also see this nuanced area where it's really like it doesn't matter what your belief system is. At the end of the day, you have to adhere to the instructions of the person above you. For example, one of the people who was MI5, but then they were implanted in that terrorist group, and then it's shown that they basically it was their idea to kidnap this innocent guy, you know, and to try to like get in there, and you can kind of see like, okay, like,
and then when things go bad, they're like, we'll just frame the slow horses, because that's what they're doing.
And Diana, like at the end, wasn't even as concerned about saving the boy as much as she was concerned about having her own back and trying to like erase things, and it was really the slow horses.
And they wanted to kill the terrorist guy, you know, in the helicopter, and they had to like shield him so that he could see trial, because they just wanted to cover up all evidence that they had any involvement. It's just fascinating. And then, do you want to go on to season 2?
Well, I do want to say really quick, I really liked River's relationship with his grandfather, and I really liked that they both were doing the same. Like River's grandfather was an ex-spy who's really high above, and then he basically paved the way for River to get in, and then I love the connection that they have.
Well, yeah, because it's like clear nepotism. It's just like such like obvious nepotism, and
but also like River really like I think deserves it. You know, he's obviously very talented in a lot of ways.
I love that like Lamb's relationship to him is so funny, because like River is talented, but he also screwed up big time, and I think Lamb doesn't like that he's like just this nepotism baby, you know, just like in there.
Oh yeah.
So it's like they have such a great chemistry.
What I love about River's character that I feel so bad for him, I guess, is that he tries so hard, but he keeps screwing up the training. And then it's second season, he like literally thought that someone was gonna bomb everyone, and then realized that was like the bombs were all still there, so he called, and then I felt so bad because like season 2 he calls Diana, and he's like
you better be sure,
but he goes when he realizes that he messed up again, he's like, and I love how he's like, not again, this can't happen to me again.
and then they're like, again.
Let's little context. I mean,
all right,
this is
season
a spoiler
2.
section,
All right,
so
all
you
right.
guys should know. But
Okay,
let's put a
season 2.
context
Now
to this.
that I remember season 2 again, like it is great. It has its own great
Yeah.
stuff. But I think it is more of a slow burn that like the plot reveals itself more at the end. Yeah, like basically River is investigating this like spy, this Russian spy who's kind of like come back to the UK, and like there's some kind of scheme going on. They're trying to figure it out with this airfield, and like he's undercover as a journalist, and basically he's trying to figure out what's going on with this Russian spy, and he thinks it's the dad of this girl that he's been like flirting with and hanging out with, but it's actually the mom. And so they tie him up,
which was a surprise.
Which that was a great twist.
Yeah.
But he thinks they're going to blow up some building, in London, and so they tie him up. And one of the best scenes is after he gets tied up and he's trying to.
I think it's called Glass House, right?
Yeah, something Glass Tower, something like that.
Yeah.
But they tie him up, and he's trying to explain when the daughter and the father come there. He's trying to explain to them like, your mom is in a terrorist organization with the Russians, and they're like what? And he's like, you gotta trust me, you gotta believe me. And he calls in like the threat, and to Diana, and they clear out the whole area, which is like a big deal. After the call, you just see him standing there, and he's just hanging out with them, just like, sorry about all this.
Yeah.
But he's like confident. He's like, did my job. I'm good. I'm good spy.
And you can tell like in his demeanor, like he's like, oh, I'm going to get out of this. Like,
yeah, like, oh, I'm going back.
Anymore.
Yeah, I'm out of this.
I'm going
house,
to be in one of the big guys. This is a big thing. Like I stopped it,
So.
So.
Yeah. Then he realizes
that the bomb is still there.
Oh shit. Yeah.
And it was like the terrorists basically wanted him to call and freak everyone out because there was an alternate plot.
But the fact that there's so much like shit can go wrong in this show, that's what I love about it, is that like the show isn't allowed to have like the good guys or the spies look like fucking idiots, So like it's just like there's constant this anxiety of like, please don't screw up again.
Well, honestly, it was relatable to me as well, like in that sense where it's like when you're working, and you're like, oh man, I messed up on something. Like, how did I make such a stupid mistake?
Yeah.
Or when you're like presenting and trying to like, it was very, that's what I mean with the relatability factor in there. I do like that at the end. So one of the bad guys ends up actually gunning for River's grandfather, and I like that River like there to defend him and everything else, but at the end of the day, like his grandfather shows himself to be a badass and just like kills the guy before anyone else comes in.
Jonathan Pryce plays his grandfather. It's great. Yeah. Before we say anything else or wrap up, I think one major thing we should talk about with season 2 is Min's death. Min and Louisa are together, in the second season, and it's like they're looking for a house. They're very serious, very committed relationship, and it's really nice seeing them like go out, try to like do a job together. But the problem is that Min, he's just not serious. He's not really serious about the job. He kind of takes things for granted, whereas Louisa is very much like, I want to get out of Slough House. I'm not just content with this. He's more content. So they get in an argument. Basically what we were saying like throughout the show, where like Min is going to die because you could just see it coming. He's making foolish mistakes. He's just like sticking his neck out where he shouldn't, riding his bike around, chasing after the bad guys. Like, something bad is going to happen. And finally, it turns out he gets hit by a car. The Russians try to frame it like some random person hit him, but Lamb ends up figuring out that no, it was the bad guys, and Louisa knows like clearly it wasn't an accident. Like someone killed him.
No, what I was sad that his character ended, because what I liked about him in the first season is like how he got there. He like accidentally left a very high profile document, I think,
on a train,
and then he was like, when I got home, when I realized in the news that this was there, I started crying, and I thought my wife was going to like hug me, but instead she like
called me an idiot.
Yeah. And obviously they divorced and things like that. But it was like, God, you feel for him. But season 2, like his girlfriend warns him, like, hey, you got to take this more seriously and stuff. And he really tries. And I think he was going to meet his son for dinner, who cancels. And then he's like, okay, but might as well chase this bad guy. But the thing, to your point, is that he was really not being careful at all, and he was very careless. And again, like it shows real life consequences to those actions. It was funny because when he was getting drunk, with the bad guys, like saying things in a joking way that ends up being true. Like, you're not like trying to get me drunk so that I get in a car crash, are you?
Yeah.
But then he's like joking, and then
Yeah.
and then he's like, oh, like they're like complaining about their bosses, and then you think like this is gonna be take a comedic turn, but then it turns, you know, very serious.
Well, and I love how they show Louisa like processing her grief. And I thought it was like very realistic. Like, she's just like, I just want to do my work and not have to be home just being sad, you know, and just like continue with the mission.
Also, she wants to like avenge.
Well, yeah, her
she's boyfriend, because she's like, she's in love with him. You know, I think. So.
Yeah. So, can we talk about the guy who's like the computer hacker?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's like this long running joke where this like computer hacker guy, he's like a dick to everyone. He's an asshole, and we learned that the reason he was sent to like one of the things that's nice about the show is like, periodically you find out things like why this person was sent to Slough House. What did they screw up on? Yeah. Why are they there? And we finally learn, River learns, you know, I think from Lamb, that this hacker was sent there because he's just so impossible to work with. He's just so obnoxious. Nobody likes him. Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, he even, like, because someone, like, did something a little rude to him, and then he literally hacked their profile or something and put them as, like, in the sex offender list.
Yeah.
So you do crap like that.
Yeah, you're
just
gonna be
because he didn't like someone or someone did something rude.
So he's good at his job, but he's so impossible to work with. And so they're always having to like give him information in order for him to like help them out on cases. And one of the things that River's always saying is like, I'll tell you why you were sent to Slough House, because he doesn't know. And at the end of the second season, he does like a very sweet thing where like finally like the hacker's like, okay, so you got to tell me, why did they send me
Season 1,
here?
I think
it was at the end of season 2. But maybe it was season 1.
Either
one. But anyways, he says, you know, why was I sent here? And River just kind of thinks for a while, and he says, it's because you were too good. People were intimidated by you. And he's like, knew it.
Yeah.
You know? In a way, it's kind of like they're these people who hate each other but kind of form a family because they're all in the same situation.
They're all outcasts.
And what I love about the first season, I think maybe this is why I prefer the first season a little bit more, is because when they are turned on by MI5, they have to like band together. They like have to watch each other's backs. Mm-hmm. And they really are like a family in that situation where it's like, it's just us against everyone.
Except for that one guy in season 1 who ratted on.
Oh, yeah.
I felt really bad for him because he was like, he was very, he wasn't like a big character, but like he was still lying to his wife, talking
that
about
he was
like,
in MI5.
Yeah. Anyway, at the end of the season, Diana basically confirms that we're not going to give him the position back to what he was. Mm-hmm. And I felt kind of devastated for him because he was like, had his hopes up so much, and he was like pushed into a wall, and he still didn't.
Yeah, but he was annoying. He wanted to hang out with his coworkers all the time. What a dick.
I really highly recommend this show again, but also I'm really looking forward to the 3rd season. And
yeah, I'm so glad they're doing more. Yeah, totally recommend it.
Yes, let us know what else you recommend for us to watch, and thank you again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.